application. So if you're an application developer, you're utilizing Open, you have this free architecture, you have the marketing, the exposure, but then you have this error mechanism that that enhances the initial traction, the initial use of your application, your game, your dating app, whatever it is. And that was our idea, that we would build a self-sustaining growth pool for us and allow us to continuously and aggressively acquire new developers. And the way we're actually built, I don't know if any of you have taken a look at our white paper or some of our materials, is that we have an API. That API, very much as developers know, developers like to utilize one API for one feature, payments, or for eGrids, or Twilio's API. If you ever Uber and you get those SMS messages, that's Twilio's API, and Uber is a customer and client. What we'd like to do is that relationship. We want to be the best in one specific area, payments, so that when any application comes out, they're utilizing Open. And the reason why that's important is because combined with this developer growth pool, we've been approaching different blockchains to basically come out and basically solve their problem of developer engagement. How do we do that? If you are an API and you are tied in all applications using a centralized service, you can then take all those relationships. Because you're using something like a scaffold, you would do one integration on that blockchain smart contract language. Let's say Cardano. Let's say Archain. Archain is a real-life example. So Archain is developing Rolang. It's a concurrent, it's a programming language around Solidity for concurrency, like Python with concurrency, based on this calculus model. But to simplify it, we could take an existing library of application developers who've approached us to deploy on Ethereum, and with one single integration, deploy a number of applications with pre-existing users to it. So that's kind of our kind of blockchain angle. That's why we are excited to work with specific blockchain projects and vice versa. And it's our method of seeing adoption occur by building a bridge, making things easy for developers, technology forward. And I think some words on this one, but this is supposed to say thank you.
Q&A 세션을 좀 진행을 해볼 텐데요. 질문이 있으신 분이 손을 들어주시면 글을 전달해드리도록 하겠습니다. 바로 저기 계시네요.
앱스토어 같은 경우에는 외부 결제 모듈이 정책상 안 되는 걸로 알고 있는데 혹시 플랫폼 결제 모듈을 가지고 그 앱을 올렸을 때 전혀 문제 없이 심사 통과를 할 수 있는지 궁금하거든요. 혹시 어떻게 생각하시는지.
Is this for, do you mean for Apple and Android? I just want to clarify. Yeah, this is not for mobile applications. Usually what mobile application developers would do is they would port a mobile version of their game to HTML5 and make it web-based, which is what we did when someone came to us with a REST API product. We took a mobile port of our game and we made a web version to access some enhanced features. But I'm going to just stay there. Okay, great.
질문 있으신 분 손 들어주시면 저희가 마이크를 전달을 해드리겠습니다.
게임을 만들고 있는데요. 글로벌 서비스를 하다 보면 서버 문제가 제일 크거든요. 그래서 네트워크 문제가 생긴 경우가 굉장히 많은데 암호화폐로 결제를 하면 실시간으로 결제가 되지 않고 시간이 좀 걸리거든요. 그 그 사이에 만약에 서버가 끊어져서 네트워킹이 안 되면 그거를 이제 만약에 저희 회사에서 오픈 플랫폼을 사용을 하였을 때 저희가 그것을 다 고객에게 보상을 해줄 수는 없잖아요. 어떤 순간에서 그게 오류가 났다라는 거를 저희가 데이터로 받아볼 수 있거나 거기에 대한 다른 정책이 있는지 궁금합니다.
If I understood the question correctly, I just wanted to ask the translator, is the question really ultimately asking about returns and refunds due to some technical error?
네트워크 문제가 있을 때 결제가 중간에 안 돼버리면 그 어디서 안 됐는지 오픈 플랫폼에서 그 데이터를 받을 수가 있나요?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think because we're a solution that is mainly based on chain, before the payment is transacted to the data, before the payment data is transacted to the application, we'd easily be able to point the area of failure if it's on chain or if it's off chain. And generally, if you see the blockchain consensus check, you should be able to. Sorry, getting feedback. You should be able to receive the payment. As an application developer on your side, but it's not hard to pass debugging or unit test parameters inside of a scaffold, and it's something that we might actually want to look at specifically. But I'd like to understand your use case scenario a little more of your current situation, just so I can provide a more accurate answer, because I don't know if I'm getting it correctly.
답변되셨나요? 네, 감사합니다. 다른 질문 있으신 분 계실까요? 계시면 손 들어주시면 저희가 마이크를 전달을 해드리겠습니다. 저 가운데 계신 분 한 분 계시는데 마이크 전달을 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 많은 개발자들이랑 사용자들이 오픈 플랫폼을 이용하게 되려면 마케팅 쪽이 좀 중요할 것 같은데 마케팅 부분에서 노력하고 있는 게 어떤 게 있는지 궁금합니다.
That's a really good question, because when an ecosystem evolves, especially a developer ecosystem, the competition goes through the roof. We've seen that with mobile gaming, we've seen that with desktop gaming, where margins quickly become thin because people are marketing at such an aggressive rate where it eats into the developer's profit. Our developer growth pool provides those incentives. So, for example, if you're an application developer, you would come on board. We would incentivize you with some, let's say, for example, case of $50,000 or $100,000 or some marketing exposure in that way. We would probably help in that instance where we provide marketing incentives. A lot of people in Silicon Valley have asked us that you guys should eventually create a kind of not an app store, but a kind of a 24-hour smart contract monitoring service, and turn it into a kind of a user portal. Because with smart contracts, you can monitor how much revenue is coming in. And in that way, you kind of have this charting mechanism. And if you have a charting mechanism, you have a ranking algorithm. And that's very much the blueprint for an application store, for an app store. The second major point to add on to that is you kick these incentives back to the application developer. You would ensure that a number of your tokens are utilized to kickstart the traction of your application. So if I gave a certain allocation or amount of allocation to your application, I would also do so in an airdrop mechanism to the Ethereum community and to the Open community, or whatever blockchain community you're utilizing. So when your app launches, there's a pre-existing number of users ready to use your product. And that's something we're doing with an application today called Crypto Racing League. So we're utilizing the Ethereum network, where we're building an email list, providing incentives. Some ZenSoft is doing some excellent work with them as well, because they had some issues with on and off chain smart contracts. But what we do is we help incubate that process through the Open Developer Growth Pool, and now they're building up a list. And there's incentives to do pre-sales for their gaming packages, which is a very popular thing right now on decentralized gaming apps or CryptoKitties-like applications. CryptoRacingLeague.io, I believe, is the website if you want to check it out. And we have some detailed coverage on our Medium blog that details some of that relationship. But those are the three areas of focus that I would say initially outright to help run marketing a new application. And part of that story is us learning as well. We're very, very aggressive around understanding what the developer needs, both on a technical front, and also on a marketing user acquisition front.
네, 답변이 되셨을까요?
네.
네, 감사합니다. 자, 다른 질문 또 있으신 분 계실까요? 계시면 네, 손을 들어주시면 마이크를 전달을 해드리겠습니다.
These are really good questions, so please don't be shy. Please keep them coming.
Okay, when we're talking about the blockchain application, I think the common question comes to scalability. Is it scalable? And from your white paper, what I understood is that we'll be utilizing Tangerines and also Omiseko SDK. But I would like to know, like, I'm not sure how the milestone for Omiseko SDK and Tangerines. So could you please walk us through how you launch this and what you expected throughput when you are utilizing these platforms and protocols for the open chain?
Sure. So just to clarify, on the platform side, if you utilize Tendermint's ETHMint solution, it's in the thousands of transactions per second. They're kind of an independent project, as you know, to us. And on the Omiseko SDK, I hear that they're a little delayed on different libraries. We think they're a great project, but there are other projects with decentralized exchange libraries such as Switch.io, and that's where we see a very clear integration that is in a more aggressive approach to achieving their goals. Because Open is built in a modular fashion, we actually leave the developer up to the decision on what type of wallet they want to use. And that's why we kind of built these core mechanisms and features into our design. Of course, we didn't have to utilize a decentralized exchange library inside of our wallet, but it's something that would be incredibly useful for the developer if he did do it. It would be able to cross currencies, cross tokens, and it's something that we definitely want to utilize. On our own mechanism, we are ultimately an underlying delegated proof of stake mechanism, which, as many of you probably know, is 1,000 transactions per second. But because we're using multi-processing load balancing methodology, we're able to kind of in parallel, in sequence, tack on 3 or 4 other consensus mechanisms in the same simultaneous parallel fashion, as well as our own delegated proof of stake.
답변이 되셨나요? 네, 감사합니다. 저기 또 다른 질문이 한 분 더 계시네요. 마이크 전달 부탁드릴게요.
개발자들은 그 언어의 장벽이 다 돼 있었고 개발자 문서를 한국어나 뭐 영어나 뭐 다른 언어로 번역해서 올려주실 계획이 있으신지 궁금합니다.
Definitely. I think that's why that's a really good question. We're really excited about the Korean market. I know from my past experience that the gaming and application market in Korea is one of the largest markets, the most trending applications there is. So if we're serious about doing a very global approach, yes, 100% you can expect translations for documentation material. And that's also sort of why we're here. We're not really here to promote a sale, we're really here to kind of start promoting the developer program and start utilizing more developer meetups and planting the seeds of those long-term relationships? Great question.
네, 감사합니다. 저희가 시간 관계상 여기서 좀 Q&A 세션을 마무리를 해야 될 것 같은데요. 그 전에 저희가 데이비드의 제소프트 하도록 하겠습니다.
Yeah, that was a question from earlier. We mentioned the 3% transaction fee I mentioned earlier. It's 1 to 3, and the question, if you guys remember, is that would this be competitive to something like Visa? Ultimately, our percentage fee is actually a range. Some people mistake it for being a specific percentage. And naturally, you would think, well, wouldn't we just deploy your application on an ecosystem that had a smaller percentage fee? And we would say that's not true, or the counter argument is that as an application developer, you would want to be on the most sophisticated or the most highly engaged network. If you are going to constantly produce engagement, new applications, you're going to onboard incentives, you're going to constantly do airdrops, and you have a mechanism of doing so, you're probably going to want to be on that network. So naturally, you just say, put yourself in the developer's shoes. If you know there's going to be constant engagement from end users, and there's going to be constant attention through these airdrops, you're going to want to place your network on that. You're going to place your application on that network. And again, ultimately, that fee is a range, and it's based on volume, just like the Visa.
하도록 하겠습니다. 오픈플랫폼 CEO 켄 상한에게 다시 한번